We're live, and as the chat says, if you are here, if there's somebody here who wants to say hello, and I'll try and keep an eye on the chat. I have to put it on my phone so I can see what's going on. Should be fine though. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Just trying to find the link here on my phone. I see Hanzilla. Darn it. Why do you like this? There we go. Hey, Mouse. How's it going, man? Welcome. Don't think you've, is that One Blind Mouse from Blue Sky and Mastodon? I don't know if you've joined us before. If that's you, I remember you from your work, your music, with under your own name and also under the name Friend, which I think you do with Liquid Clear, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory hasn't failed me. Yeah, welcome to the live stream. If that's not you, if I've gotten you mixed up with someone else, you just have a similar name, I apologize. Feel free to tell me if that's the case. You can let me know how the balance of sound is too. If it seems way too loud, talking way too loud with the synth sounds, just let me know. I've been playing with the settings in between to try and get it dialed in. It's a little quiet before, but of course that means since I turned everything up, there's a chance that now it's all too loud. Yeah, I'll start programming sounds here pretty quick. This sound that currently says smooth lead is kind of a 80s style synth. Oh, well, welcome. Cool. I'm glad that I have correctly identified you. Pigments is great. I guess I frequently start these by kind of doing an overview, so I might as well just do that, especially since you're new to the program. This is sort of Arturia's flagship synth. It's not an emulation, it's their own original creation. There's no hardware analog to it, or hardware, I shouldn't say analog since it has a different meaning in this context. There's no hardware equivalent of it. It really only exists as a soft synth. So it's not an emulation and it's not a soft version of one of their hardware synths, which is another thing that they do sometimes. It's a multi-engine synthesizer. Its bass engine is wavetable. That's what you can see here. Let's switch this engine to. It's got an analog engine with virtual analog, obviously, where you got 3 oscillators, kind of mini Moog style. But of course, it's virtual analog, so you can still do stuff like, make them unison and stuff like that. Yeah, so you got 3 oscillators with basic wave shapes and a noise source, very analog style. You can also do sync. Click the sync button. You can do some FM with this by either using a modulator or the other engine. The modulator here is, so you can set it to oscillator 3 or to noise. So that's the analog engine. The wavetable engine is probably the main engine, if you will, as I'm sure you'd be. Hey, Tim, welcome. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Awesome. That is on the east coast of Canada, right? Sorry, my geography. It's not great, Bob. I am a very typical American, I guess. So I apologize if I've got my coasts wrong. But that's what I seem to remember, is that it's on the east coast of Canada. But welcome, in any case. Yeah, so wavetable engine. Here's where you select your wavetables. This sound I'm making, this is a sound I made last night. It's called Smooth Lead. It's not a very creative name. I'm sure there's 10,000 synth patches called that. But yeah, this is the wavetable I was using in that. It's a 2-sign sweep, a couple of signs being swept, some FM thing, I think. Yep, and you can see, you can just scroll through, and if you click here, it's got them all categorized. You can import. I haven't done that, that's why that's blank. But you can import your own wavetables. It's got, I don't know, 100, 200 wavetables. I haven't tried to count them. I don't honestly know. Um, but there's a nice wide variety of those. And then, like I said, you can definitely import your own. Not something I've done, but it is something you can do. And then here you have the position of the wavetable. This little box here, it's got a unison. You can do chord mode. I think that's a super saw style. Yeah, a super saw style unison. So unison chord or super saw style, depending on, so classic unison makes chords. I think you set the inversion or type of chord here, and then how many voices in it, and then the super saw, how far detuned it is, the mix of the voices. You can spread them across stereo field as well. Then does frequency or ring mod and phase mod, phase transform. So this is you can use this to do pulse width style effects. That's what it's set to right now, and also it does some. I think it does some pretty reasonable phase distortion, Casio CZ101 style sounds. And then you got a wave folder. You can modulate all these via the modulator section, which is here. Right now it's set to a sine wave. You can set the ratio for FM stuff here, or you can use the other engine as a modulator. Filter section. It's got 2 filters. There's a kind of a standard multi-mode filter from Arturia that sounds pretty good, and then it's got a bunch of their modeled filters in here as well. MS-20 SEM, Matrix 12, Jupiter 8, Mini Moog. Those are the modeled ones, and then a surgeon filter is a super sharp, steep cutoff one. Comb filter is a comb filter. Phaser is a phaser style performance multi-peak filter for doing kind of vocal noises in the low pass gate. You can change how the filter routing goes. Amp mods for doing velocity, panning, send for the effects. Down here, this is your control section. This band in the middle here is where you do all your assignments, and then these down here is where you set everything up. So you can assign velocity. Here I've got it set to the VCA release, so the harder the velocity is, we'll get a little more release. And then it's also side chaining, which is to say controlling the wavetable position of envelope 2. So envelope 2 controls the wavetable position. Here's envelope 2. If you watch here, oops, there we go. You can watch it do the alter that position, and then if I hit it harder, it goes further into the wavetable. So that's what the side chaining. It's so it's not actual side chaining. It's controlling the influence of this setting via velocity. So it gets a little emphasis if you hit it a little harder. But yeah, so as you can see, these are the assignments for each of these things. So I click on VCA envelope, it's going to the VCA amp, just 100%. This envelope 2 controls the wavetable position. As you can see how it kind of goes for most of the throw, but not the entire thing. And then that's mediated by, see it says velo there, that's the sidechain control, and so it's 0.13%. Yeah, and then same with the LFOs. You can assign the LFOs to different things. Function generators assigned to different things. But yeah, so this tray here is where you do all your assignments. There's multiple different ways to do the assignments, but this tray here is where you keep track of all of them, I should say. Here's your keyboard style control, so you can set your velocity, aftertouch curves, and like how much the keyboard response to filter and things like that, like how it curves. Your voicing mode, whether or not you're using portamento, pitch bend range, stuff like that. envelopes. You have 3 multi-stage envelopes, ADSR envelopes. Oh boy, we got more people. Non-visual desktop access. Okay, I don't actually know what that is, but it sounds like you are maybe just listening. Um, so I hope that this is. I hope I'm understanding what you're saying, and I hope I'm not doing you dirty by anything I'm doing. If I am, uh, uh, if there's anything I can do that will make this experience better for you, please don't hesitate to let me know what that is. And Finley, welcome as well. I know you were joined us on the last one when we were doing some micro freak, and I don't know if you stuck around or not, but even if you're just dropping in to say hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so you got envelopes here, 3 of them. It's 3 of basically everything. You get 3 of everything. Um, these are ADSR, so 4-stage envelopes. You can affect the attack and decay curves. You can alter how they're triggered, and you can also make them just an ADR, so you can remove the sustain stage if you wish to do so. Um, yeah, and these 3 are all identical. You can assign them essentially any control on this panel and most of the controls on the FX panel. Anywhere you see this sort of halo, or if you will, this tracing around the knob, that means you can assign a controller there. So on the chorus feedback, there's no, you see none of these actually have, the only one that does is dry wet. So on the chorus, you can assign a modulator to is the dry wet. But on the delay, you can assign modulators to just about anything. So I'm not entirely sure why not everything is controllable, but I assume probably because some things causes the engine to glitch out, or it's just not very functional to do that. So yeah, envelopes, they're pretty standard, straightforward. LFOs, pretty powerful LFOs. They have control of the rate, the waveform, like continuous control of the shape. So you can use these buttons to go sine, triangle, square, saw, ramp, and random, or you can just move this to the whatever partial mutant shape in between those two. There's also a symmetry control on it, so you can make some pretty weird wave shapes with the aid of that. A smoothing control to kind of smooth out things and shift the phase of it, make it unipolar or bipolar, change the triggering. Right now it's being triggered poly keyboard, so each different key triggers a hey, the organized misuse, welcome. Okay, Tim, good that I understand what's going on. Yeah, I'm curious, maybe after this is done or at some point you can chime in and let me know how this is working out for you. Actually, I'm very curious about that. um, I would obviously like to make this as accessible as possible for everyone that has an interest in it. So if there's certainly, if there's something I can do without like having to learn a bunch of new tricks, then I'll do those. But even if it's something difficult, I would do my best to try and help you out, make sure you're having a good experience here. Um, yeah, okay, so 3 envelopes, as you can see, very super duper flexible. And then the functions. So this is a function generator, multi-stage function generator. You can put as many points in it as you want. You can affect the curve between points. You can make it loop. It's like it's currently in LFO mode, so it just loops continuously. I don't know if you can see that animation as it kind of moves through the loop. It's going there. You can also set it to envelope, so it'll go through once. It's also unipolar or bipolar, depending on how you have it set up. You can change triggering, free running, loop mode, free running mode. It's got a bunch of different presets. You can draw different ways to make it to draw the thing, magnetize, drawing. So that makes them stick to these points here, and then you can scale it. Here's where you can set the rate. It's currently synced. You can set it via Hertz as well. And you have a bunch of random sources. So you got a sample and hold, binary, and Turing for doing some like generative stuff. And then the combinates, which is a way of um, sticking two or more control signals together to get a, but I shouldn't say two or more. I think it's one and a sort of fixed modifier, or two uh, that are kind of like continuously modifying each other depending on the combinatorial setting. So you've got like sum, difference, multiply and divide, crossfade, lag, threshold, offset, and remap. And yeah, and these can get some pretty wild settings, come up with some pretty wild controls by, you know, like this right here is this combinate 2 on this one, you'll see is the LFO2 being multiplied by LFO3, and it gets uh, this this shape here, this wavery kind of semi-constantly variable. I mean, it's probably more or less periodic, but it definitely has a little more variety than a typical LFO. Yeah, and then I think the last control here on this screen is the macros, and these just allow direct control over whatever parameters. Like you can map these again to just about anything. So you go to the macro assign here and put that on there, and then I can use this to turn up the high pass frequency on this filter, for example. You have 4 assignable macros, and then so you got the synth engine with all that stuff, FX engine, which is a bunch of effects units, and then it's got a built-in sequencer and arpeggiator as well. Oh yeah, so wavetable engine. I think we went over the controls now. Then there's also 2 more engines. It's deep. It's deep. It's got a sample engine, which also has some granular stuff, and it has some different options down here, like bit crush instead of the regular, and a resonator instead of just the unison options. And then the harmonic engine, which is this is an additive engine, and it's got its own set of controls. How many partials? You can do some FM with it. You can morph between different spectrums. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Okay, so I think that's enough basic stuff. Let's just make some sounds. If anyone has any suggestions about what kind of sounds I should make today, I'm always open to like do requests basically. Last time I did some industrial sounds and then moved into some kind of nice pads and some weird effectsy stuff. But let's just start playing. With some of these engines. See what we come up with. How about an owl? An owl in the woods, so kind of a hooting sound. Okay. You liked that's a challenge. So what would make kind of a hooting noise? Hoo hoo. Maybe I should just look at some names here. So that's kind of maybe this throaty additive will give us something. No, that's too much. Maybe that's worth working with. Who's this? Okay, so let's do this envelope. My gut tells me this would be some kind of a bandpass filter effect. With a real soft onset. Okay, so what if we also have this? We're going to open the filter up a little bit, but also make it put the sustain up. I have no experience with Sean. You're very welcome. Um, I'm glad to that my little walkthrough there was helpful. Yeah, this thing it's crazy deep too because a lot of times I say you, I will forget that like wherever you see these little arrows, it means there's a bunch more options that you could be flipping between. And some of these engines have they just have a lot of options hidden in the thing there. It's too throaty. Maybe, maybe just need something like a square wave. Hmm. You've definitely given me. This is a challenge. I've never even thought like how would I make a sound like this. So no, that's not the right envelope. Let's do something like this. Just up and down real quick. Yeah, and Mouse One, I was going to say Retrolog or Helion 7. I am not familiar with those at all. Too colorful for you. Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on color wise. Um, as an aesthetic, I can understand being like, oh, not for me. But it's real handy when you're just at a glance, you can always tell, like when you highlight this, for example, and it's see the orange comes up, and you're like, oh, right, it's an envelope affecting that versus an LFO or a function or a random, etc. So the color coding really does matter. It's not just to make it look like psychedelic candy shop or whatever. Yeah, pretty. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how we even get the base. I think this sign, skewed sign, was actually closer to what we actually need here. Probably do need some noise on the attack. Let's envelope 3 here. Turn this volume down. How do we get that? Ooh, that kind of. It's kind of. I feel like it's kind of a vocally tone. Maybe we need a second. What do we got for samples here? I could cheat if there's a maybe there's an owl sound in here. No, of course there's not. Why would there be an owl sound? That's just weird. I think we need. Pretty low end L. Meaning the pitch is too low. That's a low end L. Guess I could just turn this back zero semitones. Not sure why it's aha. I understand. That makes perfect sense. If you have a visual impairment that makes the colors difficult to ascertain or to use, like that would be pretty. Then it just becomes obnoxious for sure. That's too much. I want it to sound less like a bell. More throaty, like. Yeah, this is. It's not really. Yeah, envelope 3. Okay, so maybe like that. I feel like putting more noise to this filter. Yeah, we need a sharper filter. Yeah. A flute sound. Does a flute sound anything like an owl? All right. There's some bird noises, but a lot of different noise types in here. A wind noise might actually be what I'm looking for. I don't think we sound anything like an owl. It sounds nothing like an owl. It's abject failure. Add an envelope to the pitch. That could be. I mean, it couldn't hurt to try an envelope on the pitch. What kind of a pitch? I think it needs to dip down. Ooh, right? That probably. Oops, that's not right. Let's try this envelope. Oh. That was a good call. That definitely helps. I mean, it still doesn't sound like an owl, but that is definitely a component of the sound, I think. That's we should probably also make it a mono sound, because as far as I know, owls only hoot with one voice at a time. So you programmed as far as just reading that sample and playing it. It's a wavetable, not a sample, but I mean, it's sort of a technical difference. Uh, I've tried a bunch of different wavetables. Right now, it's one called Callisto. This is me switching between them. This one's called Creme. Decode. Just looking for something that'll give us a tone. Oh, it's a little electronic, but it almost has that sort of hollow core that I am sort of aiming for. Yeah. Moving furniture. Yeah, these are very electronic sounds here. Additive Plucks, blah blah blah, potion. I don't know. Super Squares, Titans, Ultracomb, Violoncel. Oh, I see. Uh, right. Swarm of Dead Insects has given a pretty reasonable explanation about what a wavetable is. Um, yeah, you basically just have a bunch of sonic data stored in a table. That's the table part of wavetable. And then you can access it, sweep through it in different ways. Most of them are made up of samples one way or another. You start with frequently, not always, but well, that might be good. Okay, that does not sound like an owl, but I feel like it sounds enough like an owl that maybe we can move on to something else. We'll just call this, give it a little, make it playable a little bit by affecting the velocity, amp mod velocity here. And maybe a little envelope 2. Filter cutoff, we'll sidechain that to velocity as well, just a little bit. What other kind of stuff can we tweak here just to like give it a little more expressiveness? I guess we could do something with the mod wheel. Let's do the mod wheel to really open this filter up. So if you which doesn't make it, it makes it a lot less of an owl sound, but gives you more range to play with here. Okay, and I'm gonna save this as hardly a hoot, because it's not really an owl and it's barely a hoot, but you know, and hardly a hoot, it's hardly hoot. Get a little alliteration there. I love some alliteration. Gotta have it. All right, so that is definitely kind of a effects type. Oh, so I realized when I was watching the VODs of these that you guys can't see these drop downs. So when I click here, right now you probably aren't seeing anything, but there's actually a drop down with a bunch of different stuff. So I'm going to select sound effects. I've selected here and nature sounds. That's stretching it. That's no owl. That's no owl. So you can leave yourself comments or whoever comments. There you go. There's a terrible, terrible example of an owl. But it is kind of a fun challenge just to kind of figure out the different elements of it. That pitch envelope, that was smart. Scott, was it Scott that recommended that? No, Sean Close. Thank you so much for that recommendation. To put that pitch envelope on there. That's something I don't always think about, and it is definitely key to making a lot of sounds more realistic. That's right. I have to admit that was whenever you say that's no anything, that's where my mind goes to. All right, so let's try a new preset. What now? So we had a terrible owl sound. I apologize that I wasn't able to get there closer. I'm going to have to give that one some thought and see if I can do some analysis. Now, if I was, I have to admit, if I was being commissioned to create that, I probably would have started with an owl sound. I would have went and recorded an owl. Probably like I have a library of bird calls, for example. So I would have started there and recorded an owl, both to use as a reference and maybe also just to cheat a little bit and use in the thing. Because this does have a sample engine, so we could have started with an owl sample and gone that way. And it would have been handy also, obviously, to have an owl sound as a reference to listen to instead of just like playing it, playing it in my head, so to speak. But, something to think about for next time. All right, so we could try some more weird animal noises, or we could try doing some actual synth sounds. That smooth lead sound I had up when I first fired this thing up was something that I was working on last night. I actually fell asleep working on it, and it ended up being a pretty groovy sound. Um, and I think I had just started by. I mean, I didn't get far because this is right here is the wavetable that I used. Maybe we should just try and make a wavetable out of this. Do the same thing. Just go through the wavetables. Well, thank you, Mouse1, for the comment that I got very close to Al. Uh, it was that's very kind of you to say. Um, it's yeah, Hoot does go down a ton. Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things like I just pitch envelopes are one of my weaknesses. Let's say it's just something I don't really think about a lot of times, but it can be a very important component of a lot of sounds. Kick drum sounds, for example, have that doo kind of sound where they go down in pitch very rapidly when they're hit. Make that free running. Make that slower. Electric motor starting. Electric motor starting. Special kind of rising noises stabilizing at a note. We could probably do that with this wavetable, so let's take all these off of that. This and put that there. LFO one, make that a lot faster. And sidechain that by envelope 2. Two. Yep. Maybe we can also have it start a little flat and come up to the proper pitch. Also going to put this envelope on the speed of this LFO. you go. There's electric motor starting and stabilizes. Definitely sounds best in the sort of middle sections here. The beginning of Deep Purple's Fireball. So I don't know that song. I mean, I know Deep Purple, I'm familiar with the band. I've probably heard the song before. I cannot pull it out of my memory banks on command, though. We're just going to make envelope 2 do all the work here. Like a giant centrifuge. Well, I don't know what you think about that one. But seems like a pretty decent motor startup sound. I might just call that one. Okay, so this is another effects sound. Sound effects, machines, default. Call it start me up. There we go. Yeah, it does sound like the motor sound for an old video game, for sure. I'll have to listen to this Deep Purple song, get an idea what y'all are talking about. It sounds like it made quite an impression on at least two of you, so. Yes, this does sound like pole position. Very much so. I agree with that. Yeah. It'd be fun if someone ever wanted to use some of these sounds in a video game. Although, I mean, these days you could just sample a real engine, and it's not likely you would have Pigments being able to run inside your game. So it's not like you could actually have this, running off of under direct control of your game engine or whatever. You'd have to have some sort of dedicated built-in dealio for that. Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible sound, and we could, you could obviously tweak it even further, make it more playable, so it's less of a sound effect and more of a synth sound pretty easily. I added a little bit of the aftertouch if you can hear that, but I can use pressure to like add more of the sort of grindy noise to it. You could do more stuff with the mod wheel and whatnot as well. Maybe add another filter or some more noise, or I don't know, something, depending on what you wanted to do with the sound, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, it's true. I guess if if you wanted to have something that was retro inspired, you could make a bunch of samples off of that and use those. Um, what's funny, like of course, is in pole position, those would have been done all in engine with very, 8-bit noise generators and super duper simple filters, if there's any kind of filters at all, square wave generators and whatnot. So we used a lot more intensive tools to get that effect than the pole position guys were using. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if once you've taken a sample of whatever and put it into a synthesizer and added, even if you're just adding a filter and a little bit of some simple control elements like aftertouch, bring in FM like I've done here. I mean, you have made your own sound. I mean, there's varying degrees of made your own sound, but um, you know, if you've sampled something that nature created and then just do a few tweaks to it, I think most people will be like, "Oh, I made that sound." But yeah, if you sample a video game that someone else made the sound and then add a few tweaks to it, then it does bring in more challenging questions of authorhood. Um, but uh, you can certainly, if you wanted to sample this sound to use in your video game, you could, or I could send you the sound from Pigments. And probably at some point, I will release a bank. There's no probably about it. I will definitely release a big bank of these sounds that we've programmed in these streaming sessions at some point for whoever wants them. Maybe I'll ask for a couple bucks for them, or maybe we'll do like a fundraiser to raise $50 and then I'll just release it for free or something like that. I don't know. You are a blatant thief. Don't trust me. um, yeah, Sean, Plug does make some really cool old uh, chiptune friendly soft synths. And my understanding is they have like gone through. They haven't just like going, oh, well, this is just an 8-bit square wave that's modulated this way, so we'll do the same thing. They've actually gone through and modeled all the chips and all that stuff. Like I read this exhaustive thing that the guy did on it was something FM, maybe the Sound Blaster, or maybe it was the original DX7, where he was like going through all the chips and like just painstaking research to get this thing right. So pretty impressive stuff. Um, yeah, there's some of them. So one of my best friends actually works in um, sound design for video games. He is an old rave buddy of mine. He used to be a promoter back in the day when I was a music journalist, and I wrote about a bunch of his events. Um, and yeah, he does sound for video games now for oh gosh, what is the name of the company he works for? It's a really small, it's an indie company now. He used to be the guy at Bethesda. I think he was like the head of their sound design department briefly, or at least for Elder Scrolls Online is the one that he was working on. And then he was at Ubisoft for a while, and now he is at gosh, Rage Games. Is that? I applied for a job there, so you'd think that I would remember, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Josh, I'm sorry that I can't remember the name of the company you work for. Um, but yeah, he does some pretty crazy stuff with sound design and engine stuff and whatnot. whatnot. And as, in addition to having truly enormous sample libraries and whatnot. So, all right. So, any synth sounds you guys want to hear, or we're just going to create sound effects tonight? We could just FM filter woo. Interesting. What is future formant? That just sounds nice and synthy. Oh, that's kind of neat. Some abstract waveforms here. Let's turn the morph off and see how many positions this has. One. Oh, this is one. Oh, this is like a 60 position, right? Yeah. There's a lot of positions in this wavetable, so very impressive. Okay. Turn it back to 3D. Sounds like we get some pulse width style stuff by, let's see, we'll go there and LFO1 and put it here. And we'll set that to free run so we get it's all right. Sounds pretty good. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat here. You guys are having some fascinating chat stuff. Samples can get, so Mouse One says, I think samples can get so far, but sometimes you just hit a completely generated one that works. I have to play around a lot to get them, but they're not the most organic things. Yeah, I mean, the samples are sort of by definition, they're static is the problem. Like you just get the same sound out of them over and over and over again. And I think that's where you hit the wall with them a lot of times, but yeah, and then there is always the option to mutate a sample until you can't even recognize what it started at. I do a fair amount of that for sure. But that was my early sound design work. Was almost all just sample mangling, like because this was like the 90s and early aughts when computers are starting to get good enough that they could handle some pretty cool sample mangling stuff, like old Cool Edit Pro and stuff like that. But real-time synthesis was still mostly beyond the capabilities of synthesizers on software, and the hardware ones were very limited. So my preferred method was to just record some weird sample, bring it into Cool Edit or whatever. SoundForge was another program I used a lot back then, and just mangle the living shit out of it until it turned into something completely different. And I still have a giant sample library that's pieces of work that I did back in that far back. I didn't retain all of it. Like you have half of it on this hard drive and half of it on this hard drive, and this one dies and this one survives, so you end up with this half of your sample library or whatever. That's kind of the position that I was in, and I'm still in. But so I have some of that stuff, but certainly not all of it. Right. Down low sounds pretty good. I should also take a minute here to praise Ataria's multi-mode for this. I don't want to say generic. This default multi-mode filter that this thing uses is pretty friggin' great. I mean, it's got, but it doesn't. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's 11 filter types. Is that right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And most of these have multiple modes. This one's got high pass 6, low pass 12. The SEM's got this continually variable mode that goes between low band pass, low pass, and notch slash high pass. Matrix 12 has low pass 12, low pass 24, high pass 12, band pass 12, band pass 24, and then a couple of a notch and a phase setting. Whew, so much. Jupiter 8, 12 or 24, mini. You just get a mini move filter, but you can drive it. Surgeon filters can go low pass, high pass, notch, or band pass, and I think its deal is it's just crazy cutoff. The comb filter has a bunch of different feedback, feed forward, low pass 6, band pass 6, high pass 6. And then the phaser, change how many poles it has. Multiples of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, up to 12 pole. Feedback. Formant filter. It's got resonance. You can morph between different formants. Blend some stuff. And then the low pass gate has 3 settings for the Vactrol, whether it's VCA, low pass, or both. And then you can also then tweak these other things as well. Yeah. Anyway, lots of different, but my point being the multi-mode filter here has all these options. It's got the most options of anything. 4 different low pass settings, 3 band pass, 4 different high pass, and 3 notch settings. And it sounds good, really. That's more the point. That sounds pretty good, man. I'm not gonna lie. That is a good sounding filter. Yeah, fat growl for sure. Um, Swarm, I also wonder how your life would be if someone had taught you tracker music when you were at school. It's a fascinating question. It's funny, when I first got into music, um, if things had come just a little differently, I might have actually gotten into tracker. And I wish that so the thing, when I got into music, it was the early 90s, and tracker music was just starting to be a thing. And I was very dismissive of it because I was really interested in the pro audio world. Um, and so I was like trying to figure out how to get my hands on like a Emax 2 or Ensoniq EPS 16 sampler, um, and was just very dismissive of tracker music and these little 4 track 8-bit sample. I was like, what is this? This is toys. This is nothing. Um, and I did not realize at the time that some of the music that I was listening to, coming from the UK in particular, was being made on trackers. Like some of the early Aphex Twin stuff and whatnot was early IDM and jungle drum and bass stuff that I started listening to just a little while later was being made on trackers, and I was just very dismissive of it, and you know trying to find workarounds since I couldn't afford a real sampler when I had that workaround was right there in front of me, and I could have learned it and figured it out then, but I didn't. Yeah, I mean this synth it's pretty great how easy it is really to come up with good sounds. Like let's just turn on the utility engine, and we've got a square right there. Put the LFO on that as well. Off of there. I have not played around with the Aphex Twin sample brain. I want to say I tried to get it to run on my old computer, and it just would not work. And I have not even thought about it. It was a couple years ago that came out, right? And it was like free. Yeah, I want to say if we're talking about the same thing, I installed it on my old computer, which was a PC. Could not get it to work at all. Spent like an hour or two screwing around with it, and then just was like, you know what? I have better things to do than to screw around with this, and just gave up on it. But yeah, yeah. Funny enough, I Swarm. I also was messing around when I was like trying to get my hands on all those, on that Pro Gear. Um, One of the first piece of Pro Gear I got was a 4-track reel-to-reel tape recorder, and then I got a toy Yamaha keyboard, just like you're talking about. With it was like FM synth on it, and it either had some PCM drums or some FM drums. I can't remember which. And then I had a sound blaster on my computer, so I could do some sample mangling on that. But then like there was no real way to trigger them along with everything, so it was quite a challenge to integrate tracks. But yeah, someone had showed me a tracker, and and part of the problem is the guy that showed it to me. What he showed me was a bunch of like essentially 8-bit covers of popular music, like New Order's Blue Monday. Done with they recreated all the samples, which is impressive. I mean, that's a very cool thing to do, in terms of like, wow, that was a lot of effort, man. Like, good for you. If I saw someone who'd rebuilt like a bunch of popular music in a tracker now, having a little better of understanding of how that works, I definitely would have been blown away. Um, but it's again just the time, because I think because they were showing me all these covers of popular music that I was like sort of unimpressed with. I was just like, yeah, okay, that's cool, I guess. Yeah, okay, let's also get some LFO on the filter. Oh, no, not there. Just a tiny, tiny bit. mean, this is a pretty pleasant sound, kind of vaguely square wavy. Obviously, it's not quite a square wave. You can see on the screen, the shape of the wave is like a weird, I guess it's a pulse of sorts. Go ahead and just do some basic stuff here, like put LFO3. Sidechain that to the mod wheel. When you don't know what else to do, you just put vibrato on the mod wheel. So yeah, on the topic of crappy old gear with poorly sampled PCM drums, bad quality, yada yada. I do think, like my attitude of the previous era was exactly 100% wrong. Like, if you have a crappy keyboard that maybe you only like one sound on it or whatever, then you should just make a bunch of songs with that one sound and just use what you have and appreciate what you have and get as much mileage out of the gear you have as you can. The worst possible thing to do, I think, is to not make music because you feel like you'd make better music if you had better gear. So you're like waiting until you get the right gear, and that's what I was doing back then. I was waiting to get the right gear to make the music I wanted to make, and that's just dumb. I could have learned a lot by making music with the inadequate gear that I had, and I might have actually liked some of the things that I did. I mean, some of the things that I did do at the time are among the stuff I actually like a lot of it better than when I finally did get all the proper pro gear and started producing um, stuff I did then, because the stuff I did without pro gear and with just random crap was sometimes more interesting. The limitations that I faced and the sort of workarounds that I had to come up with made for a more interesting product than when I was just like, okay, well, now I have the right stuff. I've got a computer sequencer and I've got this multi-timbral keyboard, and now I can do this, and I know to assign my drums to channel 10, and I'm only going to use these good drum sounds, and da 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 da. And a lot of that music is really just kind of generic and boring, just like bad EBM and bad lo-fi house music of the era. Because I was literally trying to do what everyone else was trying to do, what I had been taught to do by magazines and the few professionals that I had talked to. Like, oh yeah, no, you got to do it this way, and yada yada. And it's not to say that that knowledge is bad or unusable. Um, it was just I took it in the wrong spirit. I think I took a lot of that advice in the wrong spirit. And there's a like, oh, you can't do this. If you mess with this stuff, then you're not going to be making. You're not really seriously making music. You're just playing around. Versus being, versus more of a caveat of like, oh no, you can totally make some music with this stuff, but at some point you will need to be ready to take the next step or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, and those higher registers are definitely getting into the organ territory. Mid register, it's kind of organy. It's not super organy. Okay. I feel like maybe we should go play with some effects a little bit. I feel like we've made kind of a decent synth organ. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Sean, using a cheap keyboard through a cheap guitar pedal is definitely that's like one of the what do we call it? One of the pillars of lo-fi music making, I would say. Um, whether it's kind of a cheap reed organ or like a Casio keyboard or whatever, stick one of those through a DS1 or a Metal Zone, and all of a sudden you've got something totally different going on than you would have guessed. Keyboard, get the velocity curve. Yeah, Mouse. I'm gonna read your comment because I think it's really good, and I want people who maybe don't see the comments to make sure that they do this. Mr. Mouse One or Ms. Mouse One, I actually have no idea. Person Mouse One says, "If I could be blunt, I don't think quality matters much to people these days. Quality in quotes. We have a very finite vocabulary for music these days, and usually from our friends. So go for meaningful to you." I think that's really good advice. Uh, Quality is such a people think that quality, good, bad, whatever, is a objective trait, and it's just not. Like what you think is quality, another person might not. In certain contexts, quality I think can be more or less objective. Um, and what you're saying about finite vocabulary really drives this home because uh, yeah, when it comes to music, people do it's good, it's bad, I like it, I don't like it, and there's frequently not much more analysis than that. Um, or quality might mean done with painstaking care. It might mean using only the most uh, expensive and high quality instruments. It might mean any number of things, and some of those may or may not have any sort of direct input onto the music itself. Um, like you can take a bunch of $10,000 high end synthesizers and make a lo-fi record with them. Um, and if you probably were painstaking enough, you could take a bunch of super cheap instruments and uh, polish the shit out of them until you could polish the proverbial turd until you get something that's very glossy and hi-fi sounding. Um, and yeah, adjectives like good or bad, and or even to a certain degree, um, more specific things like refined or whatever. It just you got to really take it in context of where you're getting it from before you can figure out how useful it is. Let's see, maybe it's too much. There we go. And chorus on this. No, that's not what we're looking for. Anyway, just hold on to that as like a synth organ. It's distorted. It's dirty. It's kind of hard. Pretty big. That's what she said. Sorry, I don't know why I do that. Too much The Office, I guess. Distorted. Yeah. Gated. There's no Leslie sound on it. There could be. Transient. Da, 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 blues. Call it 80s, 90s. I don't know. Game audio. You could probably use that in industrial. I don't know. You definitely use it in rock. Sounds good. Okay. Quality without a name from Zen in the Artifact. From the timeless way of building. Okay, I like it. Quality without a name. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that concept is. Um, yeah, and as Swarm Dead Insect says, absolutely some of the best music I know are quite bad if judged technically. I mean, that's probably true of most of my favorite music. Like, I'm a huge house music fan, for example, and I know a lot of serious musicians are really dismissive of house music because it's so repetitive and so simplistic on some level. Um, but it's amazing, and being able to innovate within the small space that you have there is part of what makes house music fascinating. Yeah. Got some good judgment, good discussion going on in the contacts here or the chat here, and I really appreciate it. I can't even keep up with it. You guys are kicking my ass. We'll keep it going for just a second. Actually, be entertaining. I'm going to be right back. I have to use the bathroom because caffeine it just goes right through me. But I'll be right back. Some more thoughts here. Yeah, yeah, I might have to check that out. Uh, Timeless way of building. I like books about. I like books like that. That it's like, is it a philosophy book? Is it a design book? Who knows what's going on here? It's just an interesting book. Okay, so we've got. So far, we've come up with a couple of weird sound effects and a synth organ. So okay, so make the velocity give both. Get a sawtooth sound. So I've arbitrarily decided to make a pluck. And I've just got it set as a sawtooth waveform for now. Probably actually, that'll be one of the things we play with once we kind of get the basic shape of this down. Okay. Click over to the sequencer here. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oops. If that was a bit of a Bachlick, it was purely unintentional. I am what's the opposite of classically trained? That's what I am. I mean, I'm completely self-trained. Um, I've never studied music formally at all, except for I took a intro to music class in college. That was just like introduction to the music of the world, basically. I just took it because I needed like an entry level basic humanities credit, and I loved music, and I thought it'd be fun, and it was fun. And most of what I learned was distinctions of classical music, like how that what we people think of as classical is actually classical and baroque and the romantic and some other areas of music that generically academics like to call art music, but that tends to upset people um, who aren't academics because all music is art, not just the fancy stuff that's made in the conservatory. Okay, I think that's a pretty decent core shape. Yeah. No, I mean, I enjoyed the little bit of study, and if there was infinite time in the universe and infinite money to pursue it, I would love to, study that with rigor in academia. Just really dive into music history. Everything I learned about it was fascinating to me as and useful to me as both a music journalist and a musician. So, I would love to get more of it. There's only so many hours in a day and only so much money in the banana stand. So, what can you do? So, that's a pretty good pluck shape. I like the everything it's doing here with in terms of filter cutoff, etc., etc. So now we can play with the waveforms and see what if we can get something more interesting than actually. actually kind of like this one, and I think I'm going to use this third LFO, which is actually the second LFO. Let's see, what's it, 500? Let's just get way down here. Triangle wave and LFO2. Free run it. Free running. See, let's turn the arpeggiator off. Swarm, I'm infinitely envious of you for having a father with an enormous record collection. My parents were not completely, but largely uninterested in music. Certainly, as I recall growing up, most music we listened to was on the radio. Um, and then they being my parents, owned maybe 2 dozen records, 3 dozen records, and maybe that many 8 tracks and cassettes total. Um, so, maybe 50 or 60, 70 albums total, something like that, max. That's being generous. And that's also kind of spread out over my entire childhood. Uh, and I personally owned, like, I had my own record player, and I owned a half a dozen or 10 albums that I listened to as a kid, mostly movie soundtracks, because I was a weird kid and I really liked movies and the soundtracks. And then just whatever was on the radio. Now, speaking of Bach, it sounds it's kind of like a harpsichord, I guess is why it sounds like Bach. Yeah, that's not good. Don't like that. Don't like that. That's not what we're looking for. Guess I was looking for something else to maybe give it a little more heft, but without taking everything over completely. if we kill that. Some of these are wild, which is, I guess, what I mean. You want a nice variety in your wavetables, otherwise, what are you even doing? I think that's okay. Velocity to decay. We see a release. Maybe a little less on that. That's interesting. Yeah. I had a pretty eclectic collection of movie soundtracks too. Like I remember I had Empire Strikes Back and Peter Pan and Grease and Saturday Night Fever, and I think it was just probably whatever movies I saw at the time I wanted to get the soundtracks to, and I did. It's kind of a piano-y Pluck thing going here. So I'm turning this first engine up just a little bit because I think it's kind of a quiet wavetable, maybe. I think it just needs a little more oomph, lest to get lost in the sauce. Maybe we'll turn this one down a little. Okay, I actually think that's pretty decent. So we'll do this thing here. Put this on both engines. And we're going to side chain both of those by the mod wheel. So again, what we're doing here is just being able to use the mod wheel to bring in LFO, or to bring in vibrato, rather. Pretty standard stuff. Let's see, what can we use Aftertouch for? Let's use Aftertouch to sharpen the filter and also to maybe bring it down just a little bit. Mouse One, you're going to take off in a couple minutes. Thank you for hanging out, man. By all means, if you end up, if it's useful to you, this will be archived on my YouTube site, so you can go back and go through that walkthrough over and over again if it's helpful, or if you end up, if we end up going for a while, you can pop back in and check out one of, see what you missed here. But thank you so much for coming, and hope to see you in future dates as well. It's very much appreciated for you to come and hang out. Really appreciate all this discussion that we're having here about great movie soundtracks. Your dad being at university at Peak Disco, that's great. My parents were, I was a young child at the time of Peak Disco, and I don't think my parents were big club people, but they were, they were normies, and that was definitely the pop cultural zeitgeist at the time. So there was plenty of it in and around my house. Like I remember seeing that. I saw Saturday Night Fever in the movie theater at like 4 years old or something, so or 5 years, however old I was when it came out. So that's how it was in my house. So okay, so we came up with a nice little like classically inclined pluck. We got stuff for the mod wheel to do, velocity, the keyboard tracking. I don't really have that doing much. I guess I could turn this on. See if that's. I think you're hearing some aliasing up in this top ones here, but maybe that's my imagination. I think we will just call this one Classic Pluck, because it's a classic pluck, but it also almost sounds like it belongs in classical music. Yeah. See, there it is, classical right there. Not that you couldn't use it anywhere else. It's airy. Yeah, it's airy. Why not? It's bright. It's classic. It's pretty simple. It's pretty clean. Acoustic. It's not acoustic, but it is kind of acoustic sounding. It's dry. It's definitely not processed, random, sweep, sync. Yeah, that's good enough. Not bad. Higher frequencies are pretty rough. Yeah. Here. Yeah, I definitely think there's some aliasing going on in those higher frequencies. I guess, we could just take this keyboard scaling off. It doesn't really need it. It's just one of those things where you're like, maybe we can just turn it down to 50 and see if that. Yeah, that's better. Maybe even 25%. So we still get some effect, but it's cutting down some of those. So it's a little less, hopefully a little less painful there. And those higher preset or higher ranges. Okay. Kind of feel like maybe we should wrap this up. Actually, I think they've been going for about 2 hours, and that is, kind of the range that I like to shoot for. Yep. So we started almost exactly 2 hours ago. So yeah, I guess we will wrap this up. Thank you for everyone that came and hung out. Oh, Sean, thank you for letting me know. It is it is really nice to have feedback on these things. Like I know I mentioned this in another stream that I hope this is useful for you all, obviously, but it is definitely useful for me. I not only make sounds that I probably wouldn't have otherwise, like that owl sound. I never would have thought to make something like that. And would I ever use that? I don't know, maybe. But if I ever do need a sort of vaguely owl-like electronic music sound, now I have one. And then also like hearing things like, yeah, that's those high frequencies are rough. Like, it's nice to get a second opinion on that. Like I went to a lot of raves and a lot of heavy metal concerts and a lot of punk rock concerts. So my high frequency response is it's better than you would think, given all the way I treated everything, but it's still not great. Um, so it is good to have a second set of ears on some of that stuff to kind of be like, yeah, those high frequencies are really harsh or whatever. So thank you so much for both letting me know that the frequencies are kind of harsh and then also letting me know when I was able to dial it back. It is very much appreciated. Um, yeah, so I hope everyone enjoyed. I definitely did. I will do this again. I probably will not do it tomorrow, although there's always a chance. Um, but the day after tomorrow, definitely, if not, and probably we'll try. Actually, might try and stream my Arturia Mini Brute too. Um, just do some session on that, and just that'll be a little less structured because I mean it'll be structured, but it won't be like let's make a preset and save it because there's no saving anything on there. So we'll just make a sound and be like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and maybe let it play for a little while, and then reset everything and make another sound. Maybe I guess it'll be more of an overview of the synth than like kind of a strictly let's dive into programming a bunch of sounds. Um, yeah, if you would like more information about programming synthesizers in general, I am working on a series at etherdiver.com that sort of goes into the basics, intermediates, and then eventually advanced. We're still sort of in the basic stages. I'm posting it as I create it, and some of the steps take a little longer for me to create than others. There are a bunch of these archive streams that you can go back and look at. I have some modular synth based stuff on my channel as well. Videos that I made, I didn't stream them, I just made them and uploaded them. That stuff's out there. You can find me on Mastodon. You can find me on Blue Sky, both as Ether Diver. And if you have questions and stuff, I'm always happy to answer them there. I was happy to answer them here too, for that matter. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I'm going to, yeah, appreciate it, Sean. I also appreciate that. I advertise that on both Mastodon and Blue Sky. It's good to kind of get a sense of where people are coming from, for sure. I mean, I'll continue to advertise on both, but it's still nice to know. And yeah, feel free to, in between times too, you can DM me questions or whatever that we could cover on, or if you have ideas for sounds, you're like, hey, here's a list of 10 sounds we should make next time. Send them along, and I'll be happy to work on that and get something like that going for y'all. Um, I think that's pretty much it, though. Again, I really appreciate you all hanging out. This would not be the same with an empty room. Had some really nice discussion this time, which I really appreciate. And yep. I also, one last note, um, I have been going back through these and adding timestamps for each sound. So if you wanted to like go back and just look at the owl sound, maybe within a day or so of me, uh, by tomorrow this time, I should have that updated, and you could just go back and just click and go right to the owl sound and listen to that or whatever. Okay, enough chit chat, enough rambling. Thank you again all so much for coming and hanging out. It's been wonderful, and I will see you in a